All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How is everybody? I'll just assume. It's kind of an unfair question to just send to the crowd on Zoom, isn't it? All right. So I want to have y'all read some scripture this evening. It's just going to be back to back to back to back. So we're going to do one verse, and then we'll do the next verse, and then we'll do the next verse, and then we'll do the next verse. So if you'd like to volunteer to read one in particular here, let me know. Let's see here. Somebody to read Exodus 13:21 through 22. Not everybody all at once. All right, Jaden's got it. How about somebody to read Exodus 14:19 through 25?
I'll read it.
All right. How about Psalm 27, verse 1? Psalm 27, verse 1. Audrey?
I got it.
Audrey's got it. Psalm 119, verse 105.
I'll do it.
Who said that? David?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23.
I'll do that one.
Who said that?
My name's Leave.
Gotcha.
Proverbs 6:23.
You got it. All right. Psalm 44, verse 3. Psalm 44, verse 3.
I'll read it.
Who said that?
Sorry.
All right. Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6.
I'll do it.
Was
Susan,
that Susan? All right.
49:6.
Yes, Isaiah 49, verse 6.
Okay.
Isaiah chapter 60, verses 19 through 22.
I'll do it, Brother Dennis.
Thank you, Kinva. And the last but not least, Zechariah chapter 14, verses 56 through 57. No, I'm sorry. You won't find that one. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 5b, so the second half of verse 5 through verse 7. Zechariah 14, 5 through 7. Audrey. All right. So we'll do that pretty quickly into class here. I'll let you know. Does anybody need to know theirs again? All right.
Yeah, was mine Proverbs 6:23 or 33?
23, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Mine was Exodus 22. What?
Jaden, yours was Exodus chapter 13,
13.
verses 21 through 22.
Okay.
Everybody got it? All right. Hey, I sent around, I don't know if y'all saw it or not, but I sent around an email with two attachments in there. One of them, several weeks ago when we were in John chapter 3, verse 16, we were talking about how it's a verse that we know so well that sometimes it just becomes rote. It kind of loses its significance to us. Not that we don't think it's important, but that we just don't quite grasp how incredibly deep and amazing those words are. So I sent you just a little something that I wrote to maybe help us re-grasp that or think about it in a different way than we've thought about it before. So feel free to read that. It's not just on your own time if you feel like doing so. And I also sent a picture that I'm going to spend just a moment on in class today. So I got that so that you can see it. So so if you have that email, you might want to look at that picture while I'm talking about it. The little thing that I wrote is not necessarily for class today. It's just to read whenever if you feel like doing so. Let's see. Next week, I believe, is our You Be the Teacher project coming up. Anybody having trouble with that? Anybody have any questions about that? I'm excited about that one because it's kind of the one where you go through the whole process of understanding the background of the text, understanding kind of the main idea of the text, and then decide how to bring that idea into our world, into our context, into our day and our time. Why is this important for us to read and to know? What do we gain from it? Emmanuel.
Yes, you mentioned when I was reading it, it says teacher will send an example. So are you going to
Yes.
send an?
So I sent one, but I can resend it.
Okay, I think I've got it. It was it the
Okay.
one you sent last week?
I believe it was several weeks ago actually, but
Okay.
but this evening I will go ahead and resend that so that everybody has it to look at. Yeah, good
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I know I have not been, normally I'm pretty good about getting homework back to you as you do it. I have not been able to do that this semester. It's just been kind of a weird semester. But if you have turned it in, then I have marked it down that you have done it and you got 100 on it. I'm not gonna pick it to pieces. But before the end of the semester, I'll get it back to you and try to give you a couple comments on the things that you have that you've turned in. So I apologize for not getting that back to you yet. Any other questions about homework stuff? Okay. Well, let's pray and we'll get started here. God, we're thankful for you today. We are thankful for the light that you brought into our lives. We're thankful for you. We're thankful for your love. And we're thankful for bringing us through the ups and downs that this world has brought us through. And we pray that that your light would shine from us, that we would be able to reflect your wonderful, amazing light so that this world might see you as well. Be with us this evening as we dig into John. We're thankful again for these words, these beautiful, beautiful words, and the memories of a man who walked around with you every single day. We lift up your name. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Amen.
All right. So we are in John chapter 8. We finished up very, very quickly last week this wonderful, incredible story with Jesus with people, Pharisees and others trying to trap Jesus into saying something that is wrong, something they could arrest him for. He turns the tables as he so often does, and really sheds light on the idea that even the Pharisees and the scribes who brought this woman to Jesus are guilty of sin themselves. And we see that there's no one who is able to pick up a stone or to throw a stone. Everybody walks away eventually, and we're left with these words in verse 10 and 11. Jesus stood up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one, Lord." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more." So we talked about one way that it connected to the verses that were previous to this by just being one more instance where people were trying to navigate the law for their own benefit, and they weren't being fair and equal with God's law that had been given. There were two other instances before that, and we pick up here in this incredible verse, this theme that we see all throughout John, this light and darkness theme, and I think once again the story before here fits with this as Jesus just finished shedding light on sin, and we're coming down into a section of scripture where Jesus is going to light up the darkness a little bit, and shed light on some dark places that maybe people had been trying to hide in. So we have this amazing verse here. It's the second of the I am statements in John, verse 12, chapter 8, verse 12. Again, Jesus spoke to them saying, "I am, ego eimi, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." So this is a big statement. The Pharisees they're not particularly excited about this big statement from Jesus here about being the light of the world. Let me remind you that this is happening at the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Booths. That's where this is happening. In Jesus's day and time, when this happened, when he's in Jerusalem at the temple, there would have been pillars set up to look like candelabras, and every single day that the Feast of Booths or Tabernacles was celebrated, there would have been grand ceremony in the lighting of these candelabras in the what would have been the court of women in the temple complex. So when Jesus makes this statement about being the light of the world, he is in what they would have called the treasury, which would have been right next to the court of women. So this is probably towards the end of the Feast of Booths, and it is likely that everyone there who is listening to Jesus every day has participated in or seen or been a part of in some way, shape, or form the lighting of these huge columns of candles, these lights, these lamps that would have shone out, and really the temple is kind of up on a mount. It's up on a hill in Jerusalem. And so when those pillars, those candelabra kind of things would have been lit, it would have been visible everywhere in Jerusalem. Everybody would have been able to see it. One person wrote this about this ceremony during the Feast of Booths. They said, "Men of piety and good works danced through the night, holding burning torches in their hands and singing songs and praises. The Levitical orchestras cut loose, and some sources, I got to read my own writing here, some sources attest that this went on for every night of the Feast of Tabernacles, with the light in the temple area shedding its glow all over Jerusalem." So this was a big part of this feast that Jesus is there and is a part of, And I think it helps us to grasp just a little bit more what Jesus is talking about when he says, I am the light of the world. What was being celebrated was the pillar of the pillar during the Exodus. Remember during the Exodus, and there was a big pillar of light that that all of the Israelites followed around while they were in the desert, and it was the very, very, very visible symbol, not even symbol, the very presence of God, who was there with them in the desert, and they were following around this pillar of light, who was God himself in their midst. So it adds to the significance of what Jesus is saying here. He says, I am, ego eimi, Yahweh, the light of the world. And everybody's been looking at all these lights over there. They're looking over there at those lights, and Jesus says, that's me. That's me. It changes how we think about light of the world just a little bit, I think. But John uses this idea of light and darkness all throughout his gospel. A lot of you, when you wrote down words at the very beginning, when you went through and you wrote down words that you saw over and over and over again, almost everybody included light in there, because we see light over and over and over and over and over and over again. All right. So this is the immediate context that Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Everybody had been watching this celebration of the pillar of light when God was very, very visibly in the middle of his people. And here, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Once again, this wonderful, amazing pillar of light that is in the midst of all these people, and they're all missing it. They're all missing it. This just like people in the wilderness did a lot of times. They had this very visible presence of God in their midst, doing amazing things, and they grumbled and they grumbled, and they wanted to go back to slavery. I mean, it's the similarities are abundant. But we've got some verses. These are just some thoughts, I think, about when John writes about light and darkness, when he quotes Jesus here saying, I am the light of the world. These are some things that I think John is probably trying to conjure up in people's minds who know Old Testament scripture, which a lot of his audience would have. A lot of his audience was Jewish. They went to synagogue. They would have recognized these verses. So let's see. Jaden, Exodus 13, 21 through 22.
And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and by night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night did not depart from before the people.
Yeah, it was there all the time, present, guiding them day and night. All right, good. Tyree, Exodus 14, verses 19 through 25.
Just a moment. You said Exodus, what, huh? I'm sorry.
Exodus chapter 14, verses
Okay.
19 through 25.
Oh, okay. Just a moment. Okay.
It is.
19. Okay. 19 through 25. Okay. And I'm just sorry, just a moment. I'm trying to read here. It's like, is this right? And am I right? And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, we shall see them again, no more, forever.
I think you're somewhere. Are you in
I'm
chapter?
sorry,
No,
you
you're
said
good. Chapter 14.
Exodus 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
verses 19 through 25.
Oops. Okay.
Mine starts like then the angel of God who was going
right.
before.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And the angel of
Great.
God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind, and all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians purposed and went in after them to the midst to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. Is that it? Okay, I'm
Two
sorry.
more
Okay,
verses there. Two more.
okay, and it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of the fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians.
Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so we've got the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud that are guiding God's people. They are the visible presence of God among them, and they provide protection for God's people when they're fleeing Egypt. It's providing protection from them from the forces that would try to enslave them, the forces they had been freed from, and the forces that tried to enslave them. Keep that in mind as we continue reading through chapter 8 and we think about slavery and sin. It's protection from. All right. Thank you very much. Audrey, Psalm 27, verse 1.
Okay, Psalm 27, 1. Oh, I just dropped my stuff. Just a second. It says, The Lord is my light and my salvation, so why should I be afraid? The Lord is my fortress, protecting me from danger, so why should I tremble?
Yeah, the Lord is my light. There's a song that we sing, but this would have been a familiar song that the Jews would have sung. The Israelites would have sung throughout time. The Psalms were a hymn book. They would have sung this. The Lord is my light and my salvation. They would have equated light and salvation, fortress and protection. All those words they would have equated with each other there. Thank you, David. Psalm 119, verse 105.
Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path.
Is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path. Yeah. Where am I supposed to go? Well, God's word gives us a pretty clear path. Yeah. Let's see. Leave Proverbs 6, verse 23.
For the commandment is a lamp and the teaching a light. The discipline are the way of.
Could you read that one more time? It was breaking up a little bit for me.
Sorry, I'm at a hotel.
No worries.
For the commandment is a lamp and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are the way of life.
Yeah, so a very similar concept. The one was your word is a lamp, which is interesting because in John we're talking about what? The word, and here the word says he's the light of the world. And then a very similar concept, your law, your commandments are a lamp or a light to my feet. They guide me. So they're a guide. Tyree again, Psalm chapter 44, verse 3.
And before he does, I want to thank you for pronouncing my name right. Kirk must have trained you.
Absolutely. No, I heard you say it just a minute ago, and I'm so glad that you did.
All right. Psalms
Irene.
44, verse 3 says, therefore they got not the land in possession by their own sword, neither did their own arm save them, but thy right hand and thine arm, and the light of thy countenance, because thou hast as a favor unto them.
Yeah. You hear light in there?
Mm-hmm.
We heard light in there. I don't have my note on that one. And by your right hand, the light of your face, your own sword, but that God is winning the victory for them. Light has to do with victory. It has to do with expelling darkness, like we've been talking about. Let's see, Susan, Isaiah 49, verse 6.
He says, it is too light a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to bring back the preserved of Israel. I will make you as a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth.
Yeah, I will make you as a light to the nations. This is Isaiah speaking about a servant who would rise up and become this light to the nations. Note that Jesus doesn't just say, I am the light for the Jews. We see this several times when he's talking about salvation, when he's talking about the kingdom of God. He broadens it, and he talks about being that for the whole world and not just for the Jews. One of Isaiah's, he had a lot. he had a lot of stuff to say to the people who were supposed to be God's people, and they were not acting like it. One of his big complaints, one of God's big complaints through Isaiah, was that he had set up Israel, he had set up his people to be this shining, amazing example of what it looked like to live in relationship with God for all of these other nations around them, in such a way that they were supposed to bring other nations into relationship with Yahweh. Yahweh wanted to be known by other nations, and they failed so miserably at it. And Isaiah here, he says, there's somebody who's going to come who really is going to be a light to the nations. Israel drew up the borders and said, we're God's people, you're not, see you later. And that's not exactly who they were called to be. They failed miserably in being that light that they were supposed to be. When Jesus says he's the light of the world, this is very reminiscent of Isaiah saying there's a servant who's going to, you know, the suffering servant in Isaiah. There's 4 different passages about a suffering servant in Isaiah. The most well-known one, the one that we've probably heard the most, is Isaiah 53, that talks about Jesus. It is a foretelling of Jesus giving up his life. And this same suffering servant was going to be a light to the nations. And so Jesus here fulfills that prophecy. Kenva, Isaiah chapter 60, verses 19 through 22.
Okay. The sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor for brightness shall the moon give light to you. For the Lord will be to you an everlasting light, and your God your glory. Your sun shall no longer go down, nor shall your moon withdraw itself, for the Lord will be your everlasting light. And the days of your mourning shall be ended. Also your people shall all be righteous. They shall inherit the land forever, the branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in its time.
Yeah, what a beautiful passage, this idea that at some point God himself will be their light. and I've got to think when people originally heard that from Isaiah in Old Testament times, that they would have thought back to the pillar of fire when God literally lived among them and was their light. You see similar dreams, not dreams, similar things written in Revelation, as it towards the end of Revelation, when it's actually talking about heaven and God and Jesus both being present. There's no need for a temple. There's a similar kind of sentiment where God dwells among his people in a very, very visible way. And this is kind of what Isaiah is talking about here. And now we have Jesus, who says, I am the light, and he is right smack dab in front of everybody, dwelling among them. Let's see. One more. Audrey, we've got Zechariah chapter 14, verses 5 through 7.
I'm looking for it. I'm sorry.
Oh, it'd take me a minute to find Zechariah too.
I'm gonna have to go to the index. 765.
It's one of those little ones we don't turn to very often.
Yes. Goodness. I'll remember now. Just a second.
It's right before Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament, Zechariah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what was the location?
Chapter 14, verses 5 through 7.
14, 5 through 7. Okay, here we go. 14. You will flee through this valley, for it will reach across Azal. Yes, you will flee as you did from the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. Then the Lord my God will come, and all his holy ones with him. On that day, the sources of light will no longer shine, yet there will be continuous day. Only the Lord knows how this could happen. There would be no normal day and night, for at evening time it will still be light. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it foresees this day where there's no more sun, there's no more moon, there's no more stars, there's no natural light as we consider it to be found, and it's not needed because God will be that light, and it's just an incredible thought there. And if you keep reading, on that day, living waters shall flow from Jerusalem. That sounds like something else we've read in John, doesn't it? I think John maybe has a little bit of Zechariah in mind as he's writing here. So yeah, thank you very much. So that gives us a little bit of a concept of when John starts talking about light. If he's writing for a people who have some background in the Old Testament, these are the kinds of things that they are thinking. But in this immediate ceremony where Jesus gives this profound statement that upsets a lot of people, everybody's thinking pillar of fire, pillar of clouds, God dwelling among his people, providing his protection, leading them away from slavery, bringing them salvation from their foes. This just amazing concept. So let's move down a little bit. Verse 13, the Pharisees said to him, you are bearing, there's actually, like, we're going to rehash some stuff. Jesus has had some conversations about witnesses and testimony. He's had conversations about where he's come from, and now he's going to stand back in front of probably some of the same people, probably some other people who heard what Jesus said, and they want to come back with their rebuttals against him. So he drops this bomb, I am the light of the world, and they want to start having a conversation about about him providing a witness or a testimony about himself. So you're bearing witness about yourself. Your testimony is not true. They're trying to throw back Jesus's earlier words. They're trying to throw his words back in his face, because Jesus had talked about all of the Pharisees and said, well, your testimony about yourself is not worth anything because it's not true. So there's a difference there, right? Jesus said your testimony about yourself isn't worth a grain of salt because you're the only one testifying about yourself. You're the only one bringing yourself glory. You're doing it for this reason and this reason and this reason, and it's not even true in the first place. So there's actually more witness against you than there is for you. Jesus answers, even if I do bear witness about myself, my testimony is true. For I know where I came from and where I am going, but you do not know where I come from or where I am going. And of course, if you've been reading the book, if you've been reading John's already let us in on this idea that Jesus is not just from Joseph and Mary and from some little place in Galilee where nothing good can come from. Jesus is from the very beginning of the world, and his Father is God, and he is God. And so we're in on this. We're in on this. Jesus has already had this conversation with people, but they're rehashing it here again. I was going to say something there. What was I going? Oh, so the Pharisees are kind of coming at him like this is a court case. They're treating this like it's a judicial proceeding. The kind of language that they're using is along those lines. In our day and time and in Jesus's time, were you allowed to give testimony on behalf of yourself? Yes. Yeah. Judicial proceedings were a little bit different, but just because you're testifying about yourself doesn't mean that it's untrue, right? And Jesus is going to come back and say, I've got somebody else who's giving me witness and testimony here also. You judge according to the flesh. I judge no one. So they are assessing Jesus by his flesh, by his ancestry, by who they think, by where they think he comes from. They're judging him by this visual image of Jesus, completely missing that he's more than just flesh. He is the Word that became flesh. And he comes back and he says, listen, I don't assess you in that manner. I see your flesh, but I'm not assessing you by your flesh. You judge according to the flesh. I don't judge that way. Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is true. Jesus simply being present in the world means that there's kind of a splitting of there's a judgment being made, whether it's Jesus making that judgment or God making that judgment, how that works exactly. Jesus being in the world, there's some kind of judgment being made, right? So yet even if I do judge, my judgment is true, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. So they're doing this together. In your law, it is written that the testimony of two people is true. So I think this is something maybe that we know in Jewish law and Israelite law. If there was, somebody accidentally killed one of your cattle, and you went to go sit in front of a judge to say, hey, that person killed my cattle. They owe me this, and this according to the law. In order for that testimony to be considered, there had to be two witnesses to the event, not just one, but two. So that's what Jesus is talking about there. According to your law, it is written that the testimony of two people is true. I am the one who bears witness about myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness about me, which is readily seen. Jesus has made the case before through the signs and amazing things that he has been doing among everyone. They said to him, therefore, where is your father? They're still like we know who your father is Joseph, and probably at this point Joseph is no longer living. Where's your father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my father. If you knew me, you would know my father also. You know Jesus, you know God. You don't know Jesus, you don't know God. You know God, you know Jesus. You don't know God, you don't know Jesus. That's kind of how it goes. And again, the word know here, I think I talked last time. I'll just give you another example. When I was in high school, I had a hockey tournament in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It just so happened that at this hockey tournament in New Mexico, one of the teams that was involved there had a player on it who was the son of Goldie Hawn. Anybody know who Goldie Hawn is? She was an actress. She's been in all kinds of movies. What's that? Kate Hudson's mother. Yep. We were a bunch of high school boys and very excited that Goldie Hawn was at the ice rink. She was there to watch. So I'm name dropping here. So she was there to watch her son play hockey that weekend. I viewed Goldie Hawn from across the ice rink. Now, I probably went back and told everybody, hey, guess what? I got to meet Goldie Hawn. Could I go around honestly and tell people that I know Goldie Hawn? I can't do that, right? I can't go around and tell people that I know Goldie Hawn. When Jesus talks about knowing here, this is not just like, hey, I've got an acquaintance and we wave from across a room. This is a know intimately, know deeply. If you intimately know God, then you know me. If you intimately know me, then you know God. And it's not just not just like a passing knowledge. This is like there's relationship here. You know more than somebody's name, maybe. Kimba.
I was just thinking that in Spanish, there are two verbs for, and we only have the one in English, but conocer is to like know something or have knowledge of something, like a fact or something.
Yeah.
And then saber is to like know someone. So I was just thinking, I didn't know what I guess the Greek word is there for to know,
Yeah,
but
so it's interesting. A lot of times in Greek, there's like multiple words in Greek, and we only have one word in English, or we typically only say one word that's kind of like a general word. Like for instance, we probably all know that there's 4 different words for love in Greek. But in English, we just say love, and we can say love in a whole bunch of different contexts, and it can mean something completely and totally different. But in Greek, they would have been very specific about the kind of love that they're talking about. This word is not like that. This word is gnosis, and it is used for any kind of knowledge. And you have to kind of judge by context what it means. Now, in Hebrew, there are multiple words for the word know. The kind of know that we're talking about here would be the Hebrew word yada. Y-A-D-A is how we would spell it in English. So yeah, really interesting thought. It's interesting that sometimes Greek has more words than us, and sometimes we have more words than Greek to define things. Yeah, so this is one of those where you could just kind of have to judge by context. So you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. These words he spoke in the treasury. So remember, we said he's in the treasury. He's right next to the court of the women. Light ceremonies probably going on right next to him while they're having this conversation. Jesus is shedding some light on some people right now. So he said to them, these words he spoke in the treasury as he taught in the temple, but no one arrested him because his hour had not yet come. So it sounds like people are ready to kind of arrest him at this point but they're not quite ready to pull the trigger on it. It's not his time yet. The time for his death has not yet come. Let's see. So he said to them again, I'm going away, and you will seek me, and you will die in your sin. That's just kind of a blunt, sad statement. What he's literally saying here, he's saying, I'm going away, and we know how he's going away, right? He's going to end up dying on the cross. He's going to be raised and return to his Father in heaven. They're going to keep seeking him. What's he mean by that? Well, they're seeking a Messiah, right? They've been seeking a Messiah. At this point, there have been false messiahs, people who have stood up and claimed to be the Messiah that was supposed to be coming, and they're not. They're not the Messiah. And so Jesus is saying, listen, I'm going to go away, and you're going to continue seeking the Messiah. And that's going to be really sad because you completely missed that he was right here in front of you, visibly shining his light on you, and you completely missed it. And you will die in your sin, singular. And when John talks about sin singular, he's talking about unbelief at this point. He's going to come back in a minute and use sins plural, and then he's going to be talking about breaking the law, being separated from God, that, like lots of all the other things that we think about when we think of sins. It's sad. It's sad. And I've got to think here that John's thinking about people when he's writing this. It's what, 90 AD, right? And there are people who are going to read this who are still looking for the Messiah. And they're still looking for the Messiah. They're still looking for, if you go and read modern day Jewish rabbinic literature, they are still looking for the Messiah. Jesus said, you're still going to be seeking me, and you're going to die in your sin, die in your unbelief. And it's incredibly sad. So John's writing for a whole bunch of people who likely are still looking for the Messiah and completely have completely missed the boat because nobody's told them. He was right here. He was right here, and he can still be your Messiah. So that's what he's talking about there. Where I am going, you cannot come because of their unbelief. Where Jesus is going back to his Father, their unbelief, they die in their sin. They're going to die also, but they're not going where Jesus is going. They're not going to be sitting at the side of the Father. So the Jews said, will he kill himself? They're confused. Is he going to kill himself? Probably thinking, hey, Joseph's his dad dead. Is he going to kill himself? I'm going, what's going on here? Where am I going? Where I am going, you cannot come. There was a kind of a place reserved, they thought, for people who committed suicide. There were some beliefs about that. There's lots of different beliefs about that today too. But you know, we're not going to kill ourselves. Like, what? How are we not going to end up where they're getting the idea that he's talking about dying now? He said to them, you are from below, I am from above. This is not below like we would think about. This is like above, Jesus with God, heaven, below the world, the earth. That's what they mean by below. You see it in the next sentence. You are of this world, I am not of this world. So when Jesus talks about below, he's just talking about the world. I told you that you would die in your sins, plural. They're talking about morality, brokenness, just all of those kinds of things. You will die in your sins, for unless you believe that I am he, you will die in your sins. You will die in your sin, your unbelief, and you will die in your sins, all of those things that have been following you your entire life. So they said to him, who are you? Jesus said to them, Just what I've been telling you from the beginning. I have much to say about you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world what I have heard from him. So I'm just telling you what I have heard from God, from the Father. They did not understand that he had been speaking to them about the Father. So Jesus said to them, when you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am. The he is added in there. That's how translators read that. But it's when you get down to verse 58, we're going to see this is one more example of Jesus saying, I am, of Jesus calling himself Yahweh. So when you have lifted up the Son of Man, is somewhat ironic here. When you have lifted him up, when you have put him up on the cross, that's when he is going to be glorified 100,000 billion% as the Son of God. That's when you're going to know. That's when people are going to know exactly who I am. You yourselves, even though you don't believe in me at all, are the ones who are going to glorify me. You're going to bring about my glorification. And you will know that I am he, and that I do nothing on my own authority, but speak just as the Father taught me. As he who sent me is with me, he's not left me alone, for I always do the things that are pleasing to him. As he was saying these things, many believed in him. Okay, so now we got some people who are believing in him at this point. So Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. This is one place where the Gospel of John starts to sound a whole lot like the letter of First John that John also wrote. This sounds so much like First John. There's commentators who actually think that the same author did not write both of those. I have no idea how they could possibly think that. They sound so similar to each other, so similar. Jesus said to the Jews who had believed in him. Now, so there's some there who have believed in him. There's probably some others there who have not. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. I love that word abide. We've seen a couple of times that there are people who have believed in Jesus because of his signs, but they're not really believers. They're kind of like a pseudo believer. They want what he's got to offer, but they don't fully want Jesus. We've also seen just recently where a lot of his disciples that were following him around couldn't take what he was saying, and they left. His disciples left. And some of you might have a version that says if you hold on to my word, similar idea, but this idea that Jesus isn't just a one-time thing. Abiding in his word, living in his word, taking it in, running with it, making it your life, making it abiding in his word. It's not just this one time, yay, Jesus, and then the rest of your life you don't ever think about Jesus again whatsoever, right?
All right. My Bible says if you continue in my word.
Yeah, and it's similar idea there, right? If you
Right,
continue
exactly.
in my word, continue. Yeah, abide, continue, hold, take in. There's a lot of synonyms that we could use there. Couple of things to illustrate this. There's in the 1968 Olympics, they were in Mexico City. There was a man from Tanzania named John Stephen Akhwari, who was running in the marathon for Tanzania in the Summer Olympics in Mexico City in 1968. They started the race. He's doing fine. He's running in a pack alongside everybody else. At some point, not real far into the marathon, which is what, 26.2 miles or something like that. I think it was long, more than I'm ever going to run. There's some jostling for position, and he falls and he injures his knee. I think his knee. It was his knee. Injures his knee, and everybody thinks he's out of the race. So all the runners, they end the race by running back into a stadium through some gates that going into a stadium, and the winners there's the medal ceremony, and they're given their medals, the gold medal and the silver medal and the bronze medal, and everybody filters out. The day's done, the race is over. There happens to be a reporter who is still down by the gate. They're hanging around, and like 2 hours after everybody had already left, here comes John Stephen Macquarie limping into the stadium. The reporter interviews him, who's standing there. Is one of the most incredible interviews that you could ever watch. And basically the question is, why did you keep running? Everybody thought you were down and out. Nobody would blame you. I mean, you busted up your knee. There's no way, nobody expected you to keep coming. His answer was profound. His answer was, my country did not send me 5,000 miles to start the race. My country sent me 5,000 miles to finish the race. And I think that's the idea that we're getting here. Starting the race is great, but if we are abiding in his word, then we've got to be a people who finish the race. And we've already seen that Jesus's teachings are too difficult for some people. They can't do that. And the reality is that in John's world in 90 AD, there are people who are encountering terrific, horrible things that are difficult. And there are people who are turning away from Jesus because they don't want to endure, they don't want to follow him all the way through those things. John's got a big message here to the people he's writing to, and the message is stay strong. It's not just this, yay, Jesus, and then go on about your business. That's not what Jesus is talking about. Jesus is talking about abiding in his word, about finishing all the way to the end, following him all the way.
I think that same message prevails for us today.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. If you haven't encountered it yet, there is going to be a time in your life when you are faced with a decision about whether you are going to be a Jesus follower or not. It's going to come. It's going to come. And it's going to be a difficult decision to make, and you're going to fret over it. Hope maybe you won't fret over it. Maybe you're going to, oh no, I know who Jesus. I mean, but there's going to be a time when you're faced with some stuff. We're faced with that stuff all the time. I love this quote. This is from a theologian named Karl Barth. He wrote and talked kind of during World War II and Nazi occupation and all those things. Some of his stuff's great. Some of it's a little out there. He's a victim of his time and some of the theological thoughts that were prevailing during his time. But he said this. He said, every Christian should daily be brought before the cross of Christ, should daily be broken by the cross of Christ, and should daily be put back together by the cross of Christ. And I love that. It's a reminder that Jesus isn't just a one-time choice. Jesus is an every day, every hour, every minute choice. And the answer needs to always be yes. abide in him, this abiding together. Yeah, it's a big thing there. Okay, so now we're going to have this interesting discussion about freedom. If you abide in me, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, they're going to take big exception to this. They're going to say, we're offspring of Abraham. What are you? So if he's talking about being set free, then the thought there is that there is something that they need to be set free from, right? And their response is, what are you talking about? We're not slaves. Never been slaves. Which obviously they must not be talking. They must be talking about like personally themselves. If they were talking politically throughout the history of Israel, well, they were slaves of the Egyptians, they were slaves of the Assyrians, they were slaves of the Babylonians, they were they were subdued by all kinds of people in all kinds of places. So there's got to be something else going on here. If you're able to open it up or you're able to look at it real quick, just check out the picture that I sent you. I'm just walking over. You got it? Sweet. All right. So about 20 years ago or so, I took high schoolers on a mission trip. It was a weird mission trip. I will never, ever do it again unless circumstances are very, very, very different. I had a pretty rough group of kids, and I split everybody up into 3 different groups, and each group went to 3 different cities where someone who I had contact with in that city would put them up. They would have at least one service project for them to be involved in and to show them something unique about the city that they were in. So the group that I was with, we went to Denver, Colorado, Ulysses, Kansas, and Enid, Oklahoma. We went some places. This picture was taken in Denver, Colorado. We went and we worked with a ministry called Dry Bones. Dry Bones in Denver I honestly am not sure if it still exists or not. I hope it does because it's an incredible thing. But Dry Bones is a ministry to teenagers who live on the street. Denver, Colorado has the highest number of homeless teenagers out of any city in the United States. There's some reasons for that. One is that it's Colorado, people seeking freedom from whatever their people just they end up there. Another reason is that Denver at the time when we were there, at least, don't quote me on anything today. I don't know today what numbers are, but at that time, Denver had the lowest street price for black tar heroin out of any city in the United States also. And so people would either end up there or go there. If they weren't already addicted to something, they would quickly become addicted to something, and then they would move on to heavier stuff, right? So we went on a little tour of Denver that's very, very different tour than most people get of Denver. This picture was taken in a tunnel underneath the streets of Denver. They had big, what we would call them bayous, but they're huge waterways in Denver if you haven't been there. There were drainage tunnels that went down into these big waterways. So this picture was taken from a tunnel that you can't see it in this picture, but there's a stash of stuff. Somebody's been staying in this tunnel. It's cold, it's dark, it's damp, and spray painted on the wall of the tunnel is the word freedom. If you look really close, it actually says free doom instead of freedom, which I think is very telling.
Yeah.
But this was someone's idea of freedom. They thought they were free. I don't know about you, but to me, this looks like slavery to a whole lot of things. It looks like slavery to a whole lot of things, right? Why would someone, I mean, we can think of reasons why someone would run away from home that would be good reasons to get away from home. We can imagine what a home like that would be like, right? We don't know the situation of people who were living in this tunnel at this time. There's probably been multiple people who have lived in this tunnel at this time, but this was their idea of freedom that became free doom because they were enslaved to some things and they could not escape it. I think this is the situation of the people whom Jesus is speaking to. There are people who think that they are free. They think they're free. They can't possibly imagine that there could be anything getting in their way of being free. But Jesus is going to come and say, oh no, you're in slavery and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. So let's keep reading here. They answered him, we're offspring of Abraham. We've never been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who practices sin is a slave to sin. The slave does not remain in the house forever. The Son remains forever. So if the Son sets you free, because he's going to remain in the house forever, then you will be free indeed. I know that you are offspring of Abraham, yet you seek to kill me because my word finds no place in you. I speak of what I've seen with my father, and you do what you have heard from your father, which is going to be something interesting here. Paul talks a lot about this. If you read Romans chapter 7 and chapter 8, he's going to talk a lot about freedom and slavery in regards to sin. Romans chapter 7 and chapter 8, he's also going to talk about sonship and being a son or daughter of the King of Kings and how that frees you from being a slave to sin day in and day out. Jesus says, you are practicing sin and you are a slave to sin and you don't even know it. You're in slavery and you don't even know it. And I know that you're offspring of Abraham, but being an offspring of Abraham doesn't free you from slavery to sin. In fact, if you read Paul also in Romans chapter 4, it never did. Being an offspring of Abraham never actually saved you from sin. Paul makes a whole argument in Romans chapter 4 about how even Abraham, who was called by God, and he was circumcised, which would have been the big, you're circumcised, you're in, you're not circumcised, you're out. Paul makes this big argument and says, listen, in order for Abraham to be circumcised, he had to have what? He had to have faith. He had to have faith. And so really, being a part of the kingdom of God has always been about faith. And Paul comes down and says, the true offspring of Abraham are those who follow in his example of having faith in God, not those who are simply born to someone in the line or lineage of Abraham. That's the same thing that Jesus is saying here. He's saying, look, I know you're offspring of Abraham, but you're seeking to kill me. If you were really true offspring of Abraham in the way that Paul talks about, where if you really had faith, if you really knew God like Abraham did, you wouldn't be seeking to kill me. You'd be wanting to follow in with some of these other people who are following me around and who are going to abide in me their entire lives. So that's what he's saying here. I love Romans 4. I love Romans 7 and 8. I love Romans. They answered, well, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works that Abraham did. If you were Abraham's children, you would be living out your faith in God in the same way that Abraham did. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard straight from God. This is not what Abraham did. Abraham didn't hear from God and then seek to kill God's messengers. No. He lived out, and now he did a couple weird things along the way. We can say that, right? But this is not what Abraham did. You're doing the works that your father did. And now they're like, wait, we just told you who our father was. What are you talking about? They said to him, we weren't born of sexual immorality. We weren't born out of somebody who wasn't from this lineage, from Abraham. We weren't born out of, like, we're legitimate children. We have one father, God. Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God, and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but God sent me. Why do you not understand what I say? It is because you cannot bear to hear my word. You cannot stand to be confronted with your own sin. You cannot stand to be confronted with your own sin. I'm telling you, you are slaves to sin. You cannot bear to hear that word. One thing that I think is so incredibly important is this idea. Christians are not Christians because Christians are way, way better people than anybody else in the world. Now, hopefully there's like a growing and a molding and a shaping and a forming once someone does come to Christ, right? We don't stay the same people that we were when we came to know Jesus, hopefully. But Christians are Christians because we realize that we're not all that great people, and we have a desperate need for Jesus to stand on our behalf in front of God. That's why we're Christians. We're not Christians because we're better than everybody else. We're Christians because we realize that we're in a whole load of mess, and we created that mess all on our own. And Jesus says to these people who are listening to him right now, you can't bear to hear my word. You can't bear to have my light shine on your deeds of darkness. You can't bear it. And so now you're ready you're getting riled up, and you're ready. You believed in me for a minute, but now you're getting riled up because I'm telling you that you're not perfect. And I'm shining some light on your darkness. You are of your father, the devil. And your will is to do your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he's a liar and he's a father of lies. So when the devil lies, should we be surprised? No, that's his character. That's who he is. He's a liar. He has been from the very beginning, when a snake whispered into the ear of Eve and told her that she could live forever and be like God. Don't engage in conversations with serpents. It's just good place to start. But where were we? Oh, but because I tell you, so you shouldn't be surprised that he's lying, but because I tell you the truth, you do not believe me. Jesus was in the truth-telling business, and the truth that he was telling them was very, very hard for them to hear, which is another great lesson for us. Sometimes it hurts and it's difficult to be confronted with truth about ourselves. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. What kind of people are we going to be when we're confronted with that truth? Which one of you convicts me of sin? You going to convict me of sin now? Are you going to tell me that I have done something sinful? If I tell the truth, why do you not believe me? Whoever is of God hears the words of God. The word "hear" there is not just hear like you're hearing my words. It's like someone who hears my words and makes them a part of their life. Someone who responds to my word in a positive way. Someone who hears my words and tries to abide in them. The reason you do not hear them is that you are not of God. And the Jews answer, what time is it? Oh! All right, we'll stop there.
Oh.
It's 6:50. It's 6:50. So next, well, we've got like 3 weeks left, I think. 3 weeks to get a whole lot of chapters, because I'm incapable of moving faster than this. I will probably, we're not going to just like straight out skip anything, but there's a couple of stories that we probably all know a little bit better than some other things in John. We probably all are somewhat familiar with chapter 9 and Jesus's healing of the blind man. I want to point out a couple things in that story next week. We're probably all familiar with the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus being in a tomb and being raised 4 days after he'd been in there 4 days. Again, say a few things about that, and we'll try to move kind of quickly through some of the material that we maybe know a little bit better, even though me, like you, those are probably some of my favorite stories in all of Scripture. So we'll do our best to move quickly and actually make it all the way through John. All right. Questions, comments, concerns? Going once, going twice. All right. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Good lesson. Very
Thank
good.
you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.